Hello, everybody. This is Tim from Team Gill Game, and today I'm bringing you a deck profile of my Nekroz Zoo. I just completed it yesterday, getting some other cards that I needed, but now it's completed and it's tournament ready, and I'm here to bring you a deck profile. Well, Nekroz Zoo is kind of a thing that I wanted to mix together. A mixing of old, amazing format with new format, two deck styles that you really think wouldn't go together, but since they're two separate engines, they actually go together really well and don't interfere. They kind of grind together really well, and I wanted to showcase that in a deck profile. So, nevertheless of that, let's get started. So at first, you're gonna run 3 Valkyries for the draw power. As you know, he's one of the main things in the deck that help you draw. Also, when you sack off your Nekroz monsters, which we'll get to a later time, the non-ritual monsters, you get effects, and all ritual summoning for Nekroz will require you to tribute. So he requires you to tribute one up to a minimum of 1 monster to draw a card. You do 2, draw 2 cards with a max of 2. So you run 3 Nekroz. He's a very good beat stick in the deck, 2,900. You can't go wrong with that. Next, you run triple Colossus. This guy is really mostly just the ritual fetch of the deck. He has basically the ability of when you discard him, you can add 1 Nekroz ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. His second effect is that whenever he's on board, you can once per turn during either player's turn target 1 monster summoned from the extra deck and rip their effects and basically make their attack and defense 0. So Colossus is mainly used for the ritual fetching, but if you can get him on board as a 3-star with a 2,300 defense, it's not really that bad. But he's mostly just used for the ritual. That's what I use him for. Next, for monsters as well, 2 Nekroz of Trishula. He has the ability that when you pitch him from the hand to the graveyard, any monster that's targeted by an effect, your opponent's monster effect, that's Nekroz, ritual or non-ritual, you can negate the activation. He also has the Trishula ability, but you have to have exactly 1 monster on board, 1 monster in hand, and 1 monster in the grave. But at 2,700, he's not really that easy to run over, and he's easily searchable upon other cards that we have in the deck that I'll get to at a later moment. I run 1 copy of Sophia. Not everyone runs this card. I run this card as a game ender. If I don't like the board that's there and I can't break it by any other means, and I can't be negated, like if I have Trishula in hand, and you do something that targets Sophia when she hits the board, because her effect banishes everything in hand and on field except herself. So if I have Trish in hand, and you go to stop Nekroz of Sophia's summon in effect, I can, pitch Trishula from the hand and negate the activation. Since it's no longer activated, the effect no longer takes precedence, and Sophia will then banish and wipe the board. And at 3,600, she is the beat stick of the Nekroz, just not widely used. 1 Unicorn, because Unicorn is good for the ability to pitch from the hand and add a Nekroz monster from the graveyard to the hand. So you can pick any of these cards that you wasted if need be. If you need them and you have Unicorn in hand, you can always pitch for your other monsters as well that aren't ritual monsters. And he's a really good recyclable card, and also he's a good Kaleidoscope target if you run Kaleidoscope. Which if you play Nekroz, you run Kaleidoscope. He's a good mixture with Valk. Since they're 12 stars, you just pitch a 12-star monster from your extra deck and you get both. And his other effect is that when he's on board, all extra deck monsters have their effects negated. So he's actually pretty good if you're going against decks like Zoo, anything that's extra deck based that runs off its extra deck. Even Link monsters as well get their effects negated and stripped from them. So he's really good. And at 2,300, he's not impossible to get over, but it does make you have to take care of him immediately. Focus on you when he hits the board. If I have no extra deck monsters or you have no extra deck monsters and your opponent does, they have to get rid of this immediately. If they don't and he stays on board, it becomes problematic as the duel continues. Next, run 2 Catastor. Catastor gives the ability to all Nekroz monsters that if it battles any monster special summon from the extra deck, you destroy it before damage calculation. So that's any Nekroz monster. I can take a Nekroz of Great Sorcerer of Nekroz, who's only like 1400 attack, and swing at your 2800 attacker and just get rid of it without taking any battle damage. Also, the other effect of Nekroz Contest, which makes him really good, is that for the non-ritual monsters, you can pitch him from the hand and bring back Nekroz monsters that aren't ritual monsters, because I don't understand why he's not able to, but I guess, rituals work that way. But you can pull back an Aerial, or you can pull back a Great Sorcerer, or you can pull back even Shirt when he wasn't banned and bring him to the field. So Catastor's actually a pretty good run. I'm thinking about putting him at 3, but 2 seems to be working at the moment. Next, a Nekroz of Baronic, only at 1 because the ban list only allows me to have him at 1, or I would have this guy at 3. Nekroz of Baronic has the ability that when he hits the field, that I can target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field that were supposed to summon from the extra deck and shuffle them into the deck. The second ability doesn't really come in played as much because in this deck he's mostly used for his first ability, where you pitch him from the hand to add a Nekroz monster from your deck to your hand except himself. So he's basically good for his pitch ability, but you can target him with Kaleidoscope if you have the levels to match. If you have a 6, use Kaleidoscope, bring him on board. 2300 is not that bad, especially if you can get him out with your opponent having extra deck monsters on the field. That concludes the ritual monsters. So now on to the regular monsters, as almost all Nekroz players would know, or ritual deck players would know. 3 Manju of the Thousand Hands. He's good for the Valkyrie summon, with Cycle or Kaleidoscope or Mirror, what have you. But he's good to also pull any of your ritual monsters to your hand, or ritual spells to your hand if you need them. He doesn't stay on board long, especially for me, because I go straight for Valkyries and I pitch him off with something else to pull Valk on board, usually turn 1. But he's mostly your ritual fetcher of the deck. He's built for that, so 3 copies of him. Next is 2 copies of the new Nekroz, Aerial Priestess of the Nekroz. She is really the workhorse of the deck because she is not once per turn. Since she is not once per turn, whenever she's tributed, you can add any Nekroz monster from your deck to your hand. Doesn't matter which one you choose. So if you do tribute her off for Valkyris or Trish, or if you somehow can pull a Baronic using her, she's very good to recycle with Catastor, and I use her for Valkyris mostly because I tribute her off for Valkyris. Valkyris hits board, I bring like a Unicorn or something to my hand, and then I'll bring Catastor, rehash her, and then for his draw ability, tribute her off again, and also add something else. So if I already have Catastor in hand, it makes it a little bit more easier. But if you can play your cards right, you can recycle her maybe 3 times in 1 turn and only use 1 for that instance. That's why I only run her at 2. There's no need to have her at 3. Great Sorcerer of the Nekroz. He's mostly in this deck just to be used as tribute fodder, but he allows me to add any spellcasters to the deck. So, as you may already know, you have that puts Unicorn, Valkyris, and Sophia able to be fetched whenever he's tributed. So if I tribute him off for Valkyris' summon or for his effect, I can grab a Valkyris, a Unicorn, or a Sophia. Which Sophia actually, I forgot one of her effects. Her first effect is that you can send her and 1 Nekroz spell from the deck from the hand to the grave, and your opponent cannot special summon from the extra deck for the remainder of the turn. So she's also kind of clutch as well, especially if you know your opponent's getting ready to overrun you with extra deck monsters. If they open up that new link and you're like, oh god, they're getting ready to go off, he gives you the ability to put Sophia, Valkyris, or Unicorn in hand. So tributing him off, that's the only reason why he's here, and he's also there for the Exceed summons as well. Now on to the Zodiac engine. I run 2 Whiptail. I run 2 Whiptail just for the attachment and the banishment effect. As you already know, Zodiac has been rehashed over and over and over again, so I don't really have to explain that much. But in this build, it's also used for the rank 4 overlays, but mostly just used for the Zodiac. So He can't be searched by Nekroz, so this doesn't really make a difference. As you know, two Zodiac Rapier for the overlay summon, and also for the link, because the extra deck does run Mrs. Radiant. So to pull this to the board so I can open up the rest of the extra deck, Earth monsters are required, and as you can see, Zodiac fits that bill. So that's how I pull into my extra deck if need be. Usually Nekroz can handle it by itself, but just in case it can't, the Zodiac engine is there. One Thoroughblade, mostly just for the when Rat hits the board, you pitch Thoroughblade, and you detach from Tiger Mortar to bring back Thoroughblade. And attach it to something. But if I do not have the cards in hand and I have a Zodiac that I'm willing to part with, like maybe a Whiptail, I can summon it and then pitch to draw and hopefully draw that card that will come in clutch. But it doesn't normally happen that way. Zodiac Thoroughblade is just there for fodder for Tiger Mortar. Next is, surprisingly, a Gem Knight Garnet. Only one, because this deck does run the Brilliant engine. It runs the Brilliant engine because both Nekroz and Zodiac require the normal summon. So since I run Brilliant Fusion and Seraph Knight gives me the ability for an extra normal summon, Garnet is what's needed mixed with Manju to summon Seraph Knight, as you'll see when I go through the extra deck. Next is 2 Ortho Scorpio, Protoplanet Ortho Scorpio. It's just a small engine that's added, so I'm not really considering it, a main part of Nekroz Zoo. That's why this video is not going to be titled Nekroz Zoo Predaplant, because it only runs like really 3 cards. I use Ortho Scorpio for the pitch ability from the hand to bring my 1 copy of Darling Cobra out, and then go into Brilliant Fusion, and then overlay these 3 to go into MX Saber Invoker, who is in the extra deck, as you will see here shortly when I go through all the other cards. But this is just mainly for the MX Saber Invoker and the grabbing of Brilliant Fusion to give me that extra normal summon, just in case I don't pull into a Brilliant Fusion because I only run 1 copy. So going on to the spells, Kaleidoscope. I run 2 copies of Kaleidoscope. I'm sorry, that was I just got a text message. If that sound is in the video, I apologize. I just received a text. This is mainly the best, in my opinion, the best ritual spell card in the existence of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because when you cast Kaleidoscope, you can pitch 1 monster from your extra deck or from your hand or your graveyard and hand or field, and ritual summon that many Nekroz monsters. So, like I said, with the combo of Unicorn and Valkyris, you pitch, like, let's say, Ultimaya to Zulkin, which is always treated as a level 12, and you can bring out both those monsters on the field at the same time with only pitching 1 card. So Kaleidoscope is really good. It also mixes with the Herald of Arclight. You play Kaleidoscope, pull out Unicorn, pitch Herald of Arclight from the extra deck, and then grab a ritual. So it's kind of like a +1 without really negging anything. So I run 2 Kaleidoscope. Next is 2 copies of Nekroz Cycle. I run Nekroz Cycle only at 2 because of the fact that I only really use it for the ritual summoning from the graveyard, which is why this is second best ritual spell in the game. I know there's a lot of them out there, but this ritual card is just amazing. Because if I have 2 level 4 monsters on board, like say I have Ariel and Great Sorcerer, and that Valkyris you just blew up a mine, and I need to draw cards, I just play Cycle, pitch those 2 from the field to the graveyard, and boom, pop Valkyris right from the grave. So Cycle is actually really worth it. I was thinking about busting it up to 2, but with Catastor I can always pitch it, so I don't got to worry about seeing it, because I can always grab it as long as I get Colossus, which I run at 3. The next, I basically run all ritual spells for this at 2. So Nekroz Mirror is also at 2. It gives me the ability, just as another ritual spell card to have out there. But it gives me the ability to basically just play it, pitch from the graveyard or from the hand or from the field, and ritual summon whatever I need to ritual summon. So 1 pre-preparation of rights just to go grab that Baronic if I need it, or Unicorn, any of the level 7 or below. And also, if I have a Mirror or Cycle or Kaleidoscope in grave, I can bring it back to hand. I only run it at 1 because it's only allowed to be run at 1, or I would run 2 of these. But only 1 because it's actually you don't see it often, but you see it when you need it. And 1 copy of Brilliant Fusion, as you already know, for the extra summon for Seraph Knight. It does really help open up Zoo and Nekroz at the same time. So if you're going to run the Brilliant engine in a Nekroz, if you're going to mix anything with Nekroz and you requires on a normal summon, Brilliant Fusion really opens it up and makes the deck almost just run without a hitch. Onto the traps, which I don't really run many of. 2 Solemn Strikes, as you already know. Since I don't run Dance Princess, which stops all my monsters from being targeted as long as they're Nekroz ritual monsters, I use this for front row support. So Strike, as you already know what it does. 1 copy of Warning for also front row protection. Jar of Avarice to put stuff back, which you'll burn through your materials a lot. The Forceful Checkpoint, only because whenever your opponent declares an attack, I look at your hand. If there's a monster, I negate the attack and you discard that monster. And also Starlight Road. Starlight Road, because I normally set up big boards. And if I have Starlight Road on board and you try to Regeki me, I'm gonna get that Stardust Dragon from the extra deck. So I only run like a maximum of like 7 spells, which is, well, sorry, 6 traps, and only a couple of spells. It's heavily monster based, because you gotta get to your extra deck and stuff like that. As I already showed you, Mrs. Radiant for the Zoo, and also being able to open up the extra deck. Ultimate to Zulkin for the extra deck pitch for Unicorn, Valkyris, or Sophia and not Sophia and Colossus, but Trishula and Colossus, what have you. Star Eater is also here for the Kaleidoscope pitch effect. Stardust Dragon is here for Starlight Road. Herald of Arclight is basically here for the Kaleidoscope as well, and grabbing of the rituals. So that's just basically Synchros and Mrs. Radiant. Only 1 Link monster. I'm thinking about running her at 2, but that or Decode Talker as well, or Proxy Dragon. I'm not entirely sold yet on what I'm going to be running for that. For the XYZs, we have 1 Digusto Emerald for being able to shuffle stuff back into the deck, and that draw of 1. But it's really handy when you burn through all of your resources, which this deck will thin out really fast. So Digusto Emerald actually really helps, and you can always just shift him back with Jar of Avarice, and you use him at least twice. I was thinking about running him at 2, but I don't really pull him out often, but I do when I need to. For the Zoo extra deck monsters, I'm running everything at 1. 1 Trident, Tiger Mortar, Broad Bull, and Chakanine. As you already know, everything that's for. Chakanine is basically just there to give me Valkyrie fodder to use. As you know, Broad Bull is to pull Whiptail to hand. Tiger Mortar is to pull, back from the grave, Thoroughblade or whatever I need, and Dryden's there for that banish. Everyone knows about that Dryden. That Dryden is broken. That Dryden is busted. And to me, it's not really busted because it's not really easy now in Link format to pull him out twice or 2 on 1 board at the same time without running like a 60 card deck. I don't see how it's really that plausible. I don't think Dryden I think Dryden should be at 1 and Broad Bull should be at 1, not actually banned, because Zodiac is not as broken as it used to be, as it is before Link summoning. So I run everything at 1. I'm thinking about adding a Borbo, only for the fact that, extra XYZ material. MX Saber Invoker is there with the, as I said before earlier in the video, it's for the Predaplant engine. Pull it out, detach, bring out a Rapier, go directly into Mrs. Radiant. And if I have Brilliant Fusion in hand with thanks to Ortho Scorpio, I will give me another normal summon. So if I can't go into any of my Nekroz, I can go straight into my Zoo if I have it. So MX Saber Invoker is actually really good in this deck. And I recommend that if you run him, you only play him at 1 because he's not easy to make, because you don't run 2 of the Predaplants except for Ortho Scorpio. And that's just so you can see it to get your Brilliant Fusion. And also, last but not least, Gem Knight Seraphonite. And as we already know, this is just here for the extra normal summon, and it counts as an Earth, so I can go into Mrs. Radiant if it's on board. But usually, if it's not on, it won't be on board because of MX Saber Invoker will get you what you need. Mrs. Radiant, and then Seraphonite afterwards, so it gives you what you need, because it's going to come out as a 0/0 because it has everything ripped away from it, unless you use the effect where if you set a spell or trap, you can basically have it be its original self for 1 turn. And if you can do it for an OTK, I recommend it, because Seraphonite can give you game if you need it, and if you can somehow pull off the crazy combos that are in this deck. But that is all for the deck profile. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I enjoy playing this deck a lot, and I believe that it'll sooner or later, with a little bit more work, be able to go to a regional or even take worlds for that matter. I know I might be being brazen by saying that, but this deck has the ability to stop a lot of things in its tracks if played correctly. And that would be it for the deck profile. I'm Tim from Team Guild Game, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, send us a few likes, and if you like what you see, we will be doing more deck profiles in the future. Thank you and have a very good day.